Hello, Mr. Walters Technology students. This is a how-to, and this is about how to create a vocabulary spreadsheet. How to create vocabulary spreadsheet. And so this how-to video will apply to many different classes. If you're doing a vocabulary spreadsheet, okay, I'm showing you how to get that started. So instead of just using a word processor to do vocabulary, we're using a spreadsheet. So a little bit different, give you an opportunity to learn how to use a spreadsheet for the purpose of doing a vocabulary assignment. Okay, so to do this, I'm going to switch us over to my screen, and I am right here in my Google Drive. So I've gone to drive.google.com, and right there I am in my drive. Now, your folders aren't going to look like my folders, so you may have other folders that you're working with. So at this point is when you want to move into a particular folder for the particular class that you're working with. So go ahead and do that first. Once you've gotten into the folder that you're going to work with, we are going to go ahead and click on New, and then choose Google Sheets. If you use the flyout, we just want a blank spreadsheet. We are not using a template, just doing a blank spreadsheet. And so that's going to open up a new Google Sheet. And I'm going to see if I can zoom in a little bit here. To make things a little bit larger for you, so that you can see. Try to keep it simple. So the first thing you want to do is give your untitled spreadsheet a title. So that title might be something like Chapter 2 Vocabulary, right? But you want to put some more information on there. I would put my name in there. So for me, that would be Mr. Walter, Chapter 2 Vocabulary. You may want to put in the name of the class because you don't want to be confused. So we could say Chapter 2 Vocabulary for Tech Lab 1, for example. Now, you may have a different class that you're working with. So we'll put a title in there for the title of the vocabulary. Now, if you've never worked with a spreadsheet before, you can use your arrow keys. A spreadsheet is made up of cells, and so there's different cells you can move around in with your arrows. Okay, a spreadsheet is a tool used a lot in business, and it's made up of thousands of cells. The cells go way down to 1,000. And you can even add more rows if you need to. And then it also goes over all the way over to a column Z. So there's 26 columns. You can even add more columns if you need to there. But to begin with, it's 26 columns and 1,000 rows. So there's a lot. And spreadsheets are primarily used for numbers, but for this vocabulary assignment, we're going to be using it for a vocabulary and words. And so I'm going to start out by giving this title. For me, I'm going to put in Chapter 2 Vocabulary, and I'm going to put the name of my class. This class that I'm working with is Tech Lab 1, Chapter 2 Vocabulary. Okay, now one of the things you want to be careful of in a spreadsheet is what happens when the information in cells overlaps with each other. So I'm just going to show you a quick little demonstration here. If I were to click into this cell and type something like just the word something, notice how it covers over the top of what I typed in here. So planning out a spreadsheet to get everything to show up is a little bit of a trick. I'm going to delete that, and when I delete it, that comes back. What I don't want you to do is immediately adjust the width of the columns. That's a mistake to do that. We don't want to adjust the width of the column. So I'm going to undo that. It's okay if it overlaps over the top. As long as I don't put something else in here, it's going to be fine. I'm going to put in a byline below that by Mr. Wolter. I'm going to learn how to spell my name right for Tech Lab 1. Guess I didn't need to repeat the name of the class, but set up a file name or a title for the document that's appropriate. Okay? Now, right now, in this spreadsheet, we're using just a 10-point font size. That's pretty small. I'm zoomed in, so it looks rather large, but 10 points on the font size is not very large, and so eventually I'm going to make that larger. In fact, for the title, I would like for that to be larger. I'm going to change that font size up to be an 18. That's a good size. And for the subtitle, I'm going to change that to be a 14. That's a pretty good size. And if you want to give it a little bit of flair, we could highlight that cell. Notice that I didn't have to drag and select all that text. All I needed to do is click on the cell and change the size. I didn't have to change that cell or that cell or that cell. I just had to change that one cell right there. So that was kind of cool. And I was going to say that if you wanted to change the color of that font, since I'm zoomed in, I have to click on these three little dots to see the rest of the menus. You may be able to see all your menus automatically because you're already zoomed out. But then, so here's the text color, and I'm going to change that to a nice dark green. I like dark green. I don't know how well you can see that. And I'll leave that black. Okay, so now below this we're going to start in with our vocabulary words, and what I do want to do, since I'm making a spreadsheet and I would like to have these numbered like typically vocabulary lists are numbered, I'm going to put in a number 1 for this and put in a period. But I want to show you something that's kind of cool. If you were to take that number 1, just leave it in there, notice how it goes all the way over across because that's a number. If I were to click that little dot and drag it down, it will, oh, I guess it's not automatically filling that, is it? Okay, well, forget about that little trick. So I'm just going to type in 1 period and 2. The periods aren't showing up because those are formatted as numbers, which is okay. That's okay. So I'm going to put in my numbers here. That's all I'm going to do there. Now notice that that column is pretty wide. So I'm going to come back and adjust the width of that column. To do that, I put my mouse over the top of the boundary there. I think you probably have had some experience with spreadsheets, so you know how to do that. Notice it didn't affect this title because remember, there's nothing in this and there's nothing in this, so I can change the width of that. That's okay. And then I'm going to put in the vocabulary words that I have to deal with. Of course, your vocabulary words are going to come from a particular list. So depending on your assignment, Just a minute, I got to get to the right class. So I found what I did is I navigated to my vocabulary list. And sometimes these vocabulary lists, you're going to be able to just simply highlight the term and do a Control-C to copy it, and then move over to the spreadsheet and do a Control-V to paste it in. Okay, so that's kind of nice, and I'll come back here and grab the next word, put that in there. So just practicing some basic skills for copy and paste. That's a Control-C to copy and Control-V to paste. Now, some of these words, like this, negative and positive effective technology, is pretty long, so you don't want to necessarily copy that that line, so I'm just going to copy that much. That needs to say negative and positive effect of technology. So to make a change in this, you need to click inside of that cell while it's still active. I could make that change up here, or you could type it inside the cell itself. But look how long that is. Okay, so to be able to make this to work, what we're going to want to do here is make that second column wide enough for our longest word, because then we'll be able to put the definitions in here in column C. Okay, so I'm going to put in the definition here: artifacts created by humans to control their environment, period. Okay, now with this cell and the definition being so long, I could leave it that way, but another technique I can do is to make this column wider, and I may need to zoom back a little bit, but I'm going to make that column wider to get those definitions to stay in place like that. Okay, now some cool things that you may want to do on this, for example, if I highlight those, I could make those words bold. Okay, that makes that a little bit wider, so I can adjust there. You don't have to do that, but I did a little formatting there. Something else that I notice is that maybe these lines are kind of close to each other, so if I do a click and drag over here on all these rows, and then I adjust the width just a little bit, it will adjust the height of all of those rows to be the same amount. Okay, so that's kind of cool as far as spacing that out goes. Okay, so that's the basic instructions for creating a spreadsheet with vocabulary. We're going to be doing some more with this depending on your class, but that's what we want to get started with right now. Okay.